Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ready, Set, Action. You're joined today by Kristina Witmer. That's me and Debra Horowitz. And today we're going to explore the power of applicant tracking systems, ATSs, and how that plays a role in attracting top talent.
I am so excited to discuss this today. Just being able to leverage the capability of powerful tools is a direction that more and more talent acquisition leaders are seeking. And so I can't wait to delve into this with you today.
Awesome. Yeah. Many companies have or applicant tracking systems, but always the question, are they really maximizing its potential? Right.
Exactly. And fortunately, I think not always. Where I play in the space is really at the top of the funnel. So it's the whole candidate attraction side of the funnel. And so that's really the viewpoint that I'm going to be talking about today. And not so much everything that an applicant tracking system can do, but how do you get that word out? And I think that most organizations, what we see is they're using the applicant tracking system as like a job distribution tool and a resume database. But there's so much more that they're capable of. I really think that that's where the conversation needs to go for today.
Gotcha. Okay. Then let's start with the basics, I guess. In your opinion, what are the key features that an effective ATS should offer?
I think the overarching function of a good applicant tracking system should help the team streamline the entire recruitment process. So things like automating the job postings, something that every system should be able to do for you.
Mhm.
But along those lines, consider how easy it is to add a posting template that's got branded content or that can include videos as part of that process. And then a lot of times the ATS will have a career site functionality featured to help lure the candidates in to that homepage. And so how easy is it to update that text that's on that career site and the images on your own without having to rely on IT teams to make those changes? Adding that video content, and is it easy to add landing pages and links from the landing pages? All of that sort of stuff is something that you definitely want to take a look at, is how does that function within your applicant tracking system? Another piece of it is the whole candidate relationship management. So that database that they're going into, does it have the capability to track those interactions with the candidates when you're sending them an email or you've made a phone call and left a voicemail to them? How does it function from a lead nurturing perspective? And then can it allow you to put like some quick connect forms on a career site landing page that just says, give me your name, title, and email address kind of thing real quick? Because a lot of times that's about all the time that you have to grab the attention and the information from a candidate. So you want to be able to really leverage that as much as you can. And I think some other points are searching and filtering. How quickly can you identify those top candidates based on skills and experience and whatever other criteria that you have, whether it's a particular degree or certification or that type of thing. Some of the things that are being recently introduced to applicant tracking systems are things like interview scheduling so that it's easy for the candidate and the recruiter to get things scheduled. Or sometimes it's just easy for the candidate on their own to schedule that initial pre screen with the recruiter. So then how does that data get incorporated into the system so you can have those notes? And they're really leaning a lot on AI to help you manage those interviews and take those notes for you and
Mhm.
incorporate them into the applicant tracking system. Then, of course, analytics, right? All of the metrics, the time to hire, the time to fill, all of those sorts of things. What kind of dashboards can be created so that you're in the know, your team's in the know, you as a leader are in the know of what's happening on every possible rec that's open and what you're doing to really make sure that you've got the pipeline coming into the system.
Gotcha. And before we continue, I have a question, sort of side note to this. I always love to look at what different technologies companies are using to do things, right? And I also like to try technologies, right? So for myself, I find that I'll try things, I'll be using things, but then I'll have to do this sort of evaluation and purge and say, I really should be using one tool. And I used to be using two for that thing, and I try to keep it clean. But do you find that that's got to be a tricky process for companies? And I'm sure with an ATS, there's things that you might even interview scheduling, right? Do you find that's a big hurdle for people?
It's adds complexity,
Mm,
right? Because an applicant tracking system is usually a big investment that an organization makes, right? And it can be tied to so many different parts of the business. Sometimes it's tied to the employee clocking in or shift or whatever. So you want to make sure that you understand what are some of the tools that they may partner with that can be implemented uh, more easily because there's already been an integration that has happened at the back end? So that if you purchase this additional feature like the interview scheduling or something like that, let's say, they may have partners that they've already integrated into their process. So they can set you up with a phone call for that vendor, and then you
mm,
can see how quick and easy it is versus going out on your own and trying to find someone on your own that has that integration capability. And if they don't, then that integration build out between the vendor that you want and the applicant tracking system that you use could take a lot longer,
yeah.
or it could be in jeopardy from the get go if the applicant tracking system doesn't want to work with that particular vendor. It can add that level of simplicity if they
Mhm.
do have a good partnership network, or it can be more complex.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks. So, as far as the ATS goes, how do companies leverage it for the candidate experience? Or you're thinking about that, sort of hyper focused on that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the things that we really are looking at more and more, especially this year, is the whole what we call rediscovery of the candidates that are already in the system that have just not made it to offer, or maybe they were silver medalists that came in second place and didn't get that offer,
Hmm.
or they just didn't get looked at because for whatever reason they didn't have everything for that one job that they applied for that they needed at the time that they applied. So in rediscovery, that automated email capability is going to be huge. Being able to personalize communication to talk to them throughout the process is going to be another area that really helps with the candidate experience. So hey, Kristina, thanks for applying. Our next step in this process is we're going to be reviewing your resume and we'll get back to you within the next 5 days, one way or the other. So you have some expectations created as to where you are in the process and what's going to happen next. And then also looking at creating candidate portals that are very specific to that type of career candidate. So we see that a lot, whether it's in retail, they'll have usually separate areas for those that are working hourly within stores
Hmm.
versus the management, right? Because the information that you're presenting to them is different and what they want to understand from
Hmm.
that employer is different. So rather than trying to one-stop shop and have everything all together in one place. It's much better to really segment it and really give a personal experience.
Yeah, makes sense. I'm sure the messaging or the compelling reasons are quite different depending on those. I'm a little curious about how an ATS might help you diversify the pool of candidates. Have you seen examples of that?
Yeah, I think this is interesting and it's a work in process too. One of the first things that comes to mind is when you can do blind resume screening within the system. So removing any kind of identifying information like names or addresses that reduce bias
Hmm.
is a great way of helping to just have a better chance of looking at a diverse pool of talent. And AI is doing a better job of that now, and it's going to continue to get better at that as it continues to grow and learn through the LLMs. But targeted sourcing is another one that the applicant tracking system can integrate with sourcing tools that bring the candidate data into the applicant tracking system and then identify and reach out to those candidates from those represented groups. In a lot of cases, we see that happening with like military, targeting of military people that are transitioning from
Hmm.
military back to civilian, right? So that's an area of targeted sourcing as an example. There's a lot of data that sits within an applicant tracking system. So being able to leverage that data to take a look at what does your applicant pool consist of and where are areas for improvement is another way to really help to increase that diverse pool of candidates. And then the biggest one that's been out there for the last maybe year and a half, maybe a little bit longer is skills knowledge. And that's a growing area for applicant tracking tools that are bolting on to current systems, or in some places, the systems themselves are upgrading
Hmm.
that you can actually source the candidate profile for specific skills. So the old chronological resume where it was more important, like what company you worked for, what was the title of the position that you held, those things are really going away as determining factors. And we're moving more toward what skills are you using that are going to be important in this role. And they're not only using that for new applicants coming into the system, but also for internal mobility. So, really looking at having that other phase of the applicant tracking system where you can look at hires and say, okay, who's on the team right now that have these skills that may not be using it in the current role, but can use it to advance their career. So that's exciting.
That is exciting. That's very new to me. I'm curious though. There's always like mistakes that we love to show our audience mistakes that people have learned to try to help them learn from other people's mistakes and not make them themselves. So, what are common ones companies make when it comes to an ATS?
There's a lot of movement within talent acquisition teams since the pandemic.
Hmm.
And people that were responsible and brought in applicant tracking systems in 2020 or 2021 may not be in those leadership roles anymore, may not be working in the as a recruiter in that company anymore. The new people coming in may not be aware of everything that the system can do. So I think the first mistake is not utilizing all of the features, not really understanding what those capabilities are. So I always try in our consulting company to make sure that we take a look at are all of the features that are available in the contract. Has everything been turned on? If
Hmm.
not, why not? Another thing is poor data entry. So maybe the recruiter is just slammed and can't get the notes in the system fast enough. And so there's a drop off of information that is happening, and taking a look at where can you as a talent leader help them to make sure that all of that data is as high quality as it can possibly be. And then training. So it's always a good refresher, right? Even if you think that the recruiters and the hiring managers and everybody knows how to use the system and the system has been in place for a few years, it's always a good idea to have a refresher because that everybody is bound to say, "Oh, I was using it this way. This and what you're telling me now is that I wasn't using it as efficiently as I could have. And
Yeah.
here's a shortcut or here's a better way."
Hmm.
I think that it never hurts to just revisit training and not just have it kind of as a one and done.
That's really good. It's funny. That's smart. I hadn't thought about how obviously there's cycles of probably how long has an ATS been in place where you start to see some of these issues when you have turnover and when you have other things. And then also, it's kind of like, refrigerators weren't very good to buy in these years for whatever reason. I feel like you just identified something for me. Like, sometimes things have happened. Maybe there's a new ATS on the market, or maybe something went out of business, or like the pandemic, something triggered something that is a common problem across a lot of industries. So that's very, very enlightening. This is all very interesting. So you want to wrap it up and give us some summaries and things that we need to do? Homework, whatever. What do you got?
Well, I think you're investing in your applicant tracking system, right? So train the team to use it as efficiently as they possibly can. And it's definitely going to significantly impact your hiring success. And I'd say, as a final thought, just understand what's on the applicant tracking system's product roadmap. Every technology vendor has them. They may not always be something that you can easily find. So ask your vendor representative for updates on a regular basis. What's coming down the pike? What is it that I'm going to be able to benefit from this relationship with you as my ATS that will just be part and parcel of the contract and I won't have to pay for? And then what are some of the other products or improvements that you're working to incorporate that I am going to have to pay for?
Mm.
And be ready for all of that so that you can understand, is this going to be a technology partner that is going to grow with my business, or are they kind of maxed out and I may need to look elsewhere when
Yeah,
my contract is up?
makes a lot of sense. I appreciate it that you really opened my mind to a few things I was not thinking about. That's pretty yes, were on the top of my mindset last few weeks, especially any product roadmap, right? Where are they
Yes.
going, and what it helps you frame your business. That makes a lot of sense to me. So
Yeah.
thank yeah, this is really good. All right. Well, that's it. And that's all for this episode. Thanks everyone for joining Ready, Set, Action. Just be sure to follow us on LinkedIn, Spotify, YouTube. You can follow these episodes, watch some old ones, and suggest new topics for us to cover in the future. And we will see you next time.
And bye, everyone.